Hey everyone, so today I wanted to go over my additional systems for my bee production. So this is my scented paneling production, my squeezing of my honey, my item distribution, my ITNT production or industrial TNT production, and then I also wanted to go over how I incorporate impregnated casings in with my impregnated stick production. So without further ado, let's go check it out. So if we head back downstairs, first things first, let's look at my item distribution system. And so one of the issues that I ran into is because I love routers, they're friggin' awesome and I want to use them everywhere I can, but one of the things that they have a very hard time doing and doing it in moderation is pulling items from inventories. So for example, I have my items going in through a router and then going into my storage system. Now let's say I want to make scented paneling. In scented paneling, I'm going to need wood, I'm going to need beeswax, I'm going to need honey, and I'm going to need royal jelly and pollen. But I need to get these items out of my barrels and get them out where I can use them. But I can't put a pipe to these because you can't pipe from the sides of barrels, and I can't get to the top or the bottom because there's other barrels in the way. So for this, I have to use a router to pull the items out. But like I said before, the router will only pull out the types of items that you specify, and they're not too super smart. So one thing that I caution if you're going to do a system like this is you make sure that there's more items going into the system than the routers can pull out. Otherwise, you'll have an open inventory slot, and then the router that's distributing the items will then see it as an available inventory and then start throwing stuff into it. Like you can see here, I've got this was an available inventory, and so it just started throwing wax there, even though I didn't put wax there. Anyway, so let's go and check it out. Alright, so my item distribution system is right here, and the whole point of this is it has room for expansion. I can go up and put them up here, and I can also knock out more of this wall and keep going around the back and the other side too, if I need to. And so the way this system works is it's pretty simple. You have a router, and since it's touching inventories that are all adjacent to each other, it has access to them all, and this guy is set to extract from the bottom side since they're barrels. And then it has an item filter upgrade on it, so I can only pull out pollen, and then it'll eject to the north, and that's it. And then so this chest is on the north side. And so what I have in here is I don't want it to pull out enough stacks to fill up this whole barrel. So I only want 2 stacks because this is going to my scented panel production. And I really only need 1 stack at a time, and I want 2, so I have a little bit of buffer. So what this will do is it will keep pulling until it fills up these 2 spaces, and then the rest of these bricks just sit here. And the reason the bricks don't get pulled out is because I have emerald pipes here to pull out of the inventories. And this is the safe way of using a autarkic gate. Pipe empty. It's an iron AND gate where the pipe is empty and there's space in the inventory. And so then this goes into a tesseract for pollen, so I can send it wherever I want. And then I have another one set up for royal jelly. Same thing. This guy right here does beeswax. And for the recipe for scented paneling, let's look that up. So I need 2 beeswax, 1 pollen, 1 royal jelly, 3 wood. So over here I have my wax being pulled out, and I have 4, so that I have double what I have in the previous ones, and then the buffer all the same. And then this guy right here is my honey drops, because when you're making scented paneling you need to impregnate them with honey in a carpenter as opposed to seed oil with everything else. So this goes into a different system and I will show that after I show the scented paneling production. And then this guy right here pulls out gunpowder and puts them in these spots and then pulls them out and it goes to my gunpowder production machine, which is right here. But at the moment I have it shut off because my gunpowder production is slower than my gunpowder machine can, or my iTNT machine can produce. So it will burn through 5 stacks in a blink of an eye. And then they get stored up here. But anyway, to get back to it, we're going to scented paneling first. This is my scented paneling machine, and this is actually one of my favorite machines in the whole system because it integrates forestry, buildcraft, Zycraft, the Tesseracts, I forget what that's from, Red Power, and a whole bunch of different mods together, and it is just so cool. So the way that this guy works is over here I have my wood. My wood comes in through this Tesseract. It's the same Tesseract that puts wood into my frame production, which you've seen in a previous video if you've watched it. And then what it does is it drops wood into here, and I only keep 2 stacks at a time, and the rest are buffered, so I don't fill up the whole chest with wood. And then it goes through a fabricator, and then the fabricator converts the wood into planks. And then goes into this guy. Now this is it's hidden under all these other blocks, but this right here is called a buffer. And I'll show you what that looks like. It looks like this, and the recipe is pretty darn simple, just wood and iron bars. And what a buffer does is it has 5 different columns going through it. And each of these columns represents one side of the buffer. So if I were to input items, say from the wood goes into this side right here, it will only fill up this column. It could put 4 stacks of 64 wood here, but it won't put items into the other ones. So this acts as a buffer, so I have an adjacent inventory that has all of my different items in it. And then the Tesseracts that are pulling from my distribution system will automatically drop items into the beeswax. Like this guy right here is pollen, so that goes into the pollen side, and back here is the royal jelly, and so on and so forth. And so I wanted to keep only the number of items necessary for the recipe. So I have wood, 3 wood, 2 beeswax, 1 pollen, and 1 royal jelly, and the rest are filled up with stone bricks. So I think that's super cool. This is called a buffer chest. They are super useful. So the last slot that's not filled here is the slot on the bottom that I don't have anything going to. And so then from there I have a sorting machine. And the way that this works is pretty cool. So what this does is I have it set to auto run. So when it goes around in a circle like that, that means it will just keep going and going and going and going. And then this setting right here sets it to column at a time. So it will only pull out if it can meet all the requirements of the items in each column. So as you can see, it's on the wax column right now. And it will cycle through around in a circle through these. So every time this sorting machine cycles, it spits out the exact number of resources needed to make 1 scented paneling. So it'll go 3 wood, 2 wax, blah blah. And then it will cycle again, and it'll cycle again, and it'll keep doing it until the inventory that is here is that it's ejecting into is full. And then it'll stop, and it won't eject things onto the ground. The whole system is backlog safe, which is really cool. So, but one thing about the sorting machine is that it requires bluetricity. So underneath here, since I'm underground, if I were above ground, I'd just put a solar panel on it. But since I'm below ground, I have a thermopile set up with 4 water sources around it, and then underneath I have a lava source. And then this provides the bluetricity to run this guy. And when you're collecting these wires, you can't just set them on top. You have to make sure that the end is actually touching like that and like that. So just keep that in mind. And then here's the power line that's running to my carpenter. So then this guy right here is my honey tesseract, and it keeps my honey full, which is coming from what I'm calling the honey pot. It's a big, or the honey pit. It's a big pit in the floor that's just filled full of thousands of buckets of honey. And then it pulls the scented paneling out into this buffer chest, which is full because of space and inventory energy pulsar. And so then this buffer fills up, and then, like I said, everything is backlog safe. And so then over here, this fabricator takes impregnated casing and surrounds them with scented paneling, and then makes alveoli blocks. So I have a ton more alveolis here ready to go. But so for this, what I need to do is to use this up so we can see it run a little bit, is I need to make more impregnated casings. And so to do that, I go back to my frame production machine, which I showed in a previous video. Now this little part right here isn't really necessary for the frames, but I put this on here and I use it for making my impregnated casings. And in order to do that, the reason I can do that on this machine is because my seed oil production is so much higher than my actual frame requirements at this point in time that I'm able to do this. And then all I have to do is I just grab a couple logs out here and it automatically refills them, as you can see, and I just put in the recipe. And then I can take my fir logs that I pulled out and then just throw them back in the buffer. It'll stop pulling other items in until this buffer is empty, and now it will start generating these guys for me. But I have to get this backlog out, so I'll manually pull that out and throw some of it in there. Throw some of it in there, and then the rest of these I'm just gonna put here temporarily. I'll put them back, but since I'm all full of sticks, that's fine. So this guy will just start making me impregnated casings, and you'll just keep going and going and going, pulling from my whole system that's already set up. Now sometimes this router will beat the autarkic gate here and pull the casings into this chest here, but that's fine. I just grab them and pull them out. This is so infrequent that it doesn't have to be super automated, and I can just let it run for a while and then have a big backlog like I have here. So then all I have to do is pull out a couple impregnated casings and throw them. I would typically throw them in this buffer chest, but since it's full, I'll put them in here. And there it goes, and it fabricates, and you can even see the little item on top. And that was a whole stack of impregnated casings. There's another stack. And now the autarkic gate is pulling them out, refilling the buffer. And once I have space in the buffer, which I do now, you can see it's starting to produce more. And then we can watch with this red light on, that means that it's got a backlog somewhere, so it doesn't have a place to put in items, so it's waiting. And if we watch, boom, 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 and there was another scented panel. I don't know. I love this machine. I think it's awesome. So in order to make the honey for this machine, we go over here, and I'm calling this the honey pot or the honey pit. I haven't quite decided. It's a big Zycraft tank that's full of honey, and it doesn't have to be this big, but I just thought it was kind of cool to make it this big. And you know, use a lot of honey. I think when I tested it, it was somewhere around 3 drops of honey per scented paneling, something like that. But don't quote me on that. I'm not sure, but it takes a lot of honey, so it's good to have a big buffer. And excuse me. The way that this guy gets filled is, and if we look over here, we can watch the items flow through. See, there are some items that came out. There goes some honey in the back. I think that's awesome. Anyway, so the way that this system works is if we break in through the floor, I think it's right here. Yeah. No, it's over here. What this does is I have a router set up to 3 squeezers, and the squeezers are then connected through liquid ducts to the valves that go to the tank. And what this guy does is he inserts into the south sides of the squeezers, and he will just rotate through and keep the squeezers full. And my check to make sure that this system doesn't backlog is that I have this gate right here says if there are items in inventory. So I'm checking to see if there are items inside of this router, because and the reason I'm not doing it closer is because I think if you emit a redstone signal, it shuts off the router. So I needed to move the redstone signal further back. And so it says if there's items in the inventory, emit a redstone signal. So if there's a backlog like there is right here, then it will move through red pipe signal to this gate, which you can't see because of my angle, but it's on this pipe right here. Red pipe signal, redstone signal, which goes to a wireless transmitter. And what that does is, if we go back to my item distribution, underneath there you see the transmitter, see it? Or the receiver. It shuts off the pipe, so that way I don't have honey drops all over the ground down in here. And then another thing is that back here, when you squeeze honey drops, you have a chance of getting a propolis up here. So I have autarkic gates that are always running, because if you have item in inventory, then it will pick these up. And it pulls out the propolis and just voids them. Because like I said, I got tons of propolis, I don't need any more. And then so this is my tesseract that is inputting the honey drops. So this is a pretty cool little doohickey. I think it keeps the honey going. Put the floor back on. And then for my ITNT production, we go over here. And so this is a pretty simple. I've seen lots of other people make machines like this. I don't know if I directly copied them. I don't believe that I did, because I didn't actually look at any of their specific ways of doing things. But I just kind of got the gist and the idea of it, and then built it myself. So this is my ITNT production machine, like I said. So the way that it works is that it uses a grinder from factorization. Well, first off, let's start with making TNT. So to make TNT, you need sand and gunpowder. The gunpowder comes from the bees. I have austere bees, and they are in a desert that's way, way far away, because this seed sucked and it didn't have a desert anywhere close by. And then the sand is generated. I have a igneous extruder, which generates cobblestone, and then goes through a pulverizer, which then generates sand. And then just like I said with the dirt stuff back there, the factorization machines are smart, so they know that if this inventory is full and their backlog is full, then they're just going to stop producing, and it will just keep going through the chain. It's full, so it's not making any more. One thing to note about pulverizers: when you pulverize cobblestone, there's a chance of getting a gravel. And for this system, since I need to make industrial TNT has gravel, or is flint and regular TNT together to make industrial TNT. But it's, yeah. So if you macerate gravel, you get flint. But I only have a 10% chance, I believe, of getting a flint or a gravel out of here. So I need a more consistent way of getting gravel. And for that, this is a factorization grinder. And what it does is it will guarantee a cobblestone to gravel conversion. And so I'm generating the cobblestone just as before in an igneous extruder up above. And then what happens is the cobblestone gets pulled out by this autarkic gate, and then goes up, because it can't go in because this pulverizer has its side shut off. Goes up and into this buffer hopper, which then goes into a pulverizer, which then converts the gravel into flint. Now there's a another recipe for iTNT that is a little more efficient. And since I have the resources to do it, I figured I might as well. You can either take industrial TNT and surround it with flint like this, and then you get 4, or if you use ground up flint and you grind the flint and turn it into flint dust, then you get 5. So I thought, what the heck, let me use 5, or get 5 out of this. So what I do is the flint then goes into another pulverizer downstairs and gets converted into a tiny pile of flint dust. And so just like before, you have to convert the tiny pile into a large pile, which I do in this fabricator, where the fabricator converts the tiny pile into a large pile, and then this fabricator converts the flint and the TNT together to make the industrial TNT. And fabricators can pull from adjacent fabricators just as a fabricator can pull from adjacent chests. So as long as I have TNT in here and flint dust in here, this guy will make industrial TNT. And then underneath, I have a gate that pulls it out into a tesseract that then, stores it in this barrel right here. But I don't have this running all the time because my gunpowder production at the moment is a little low. That's something I need to boost. But one of the issues I found with this system is I could be wrong on this, but I couldn't find anything on the wiki, and I tried it myself and I couldn't get it to work. I wasn't able to control the grinder with a redstone signal. I don't know if it can, I don't know if it can't. If it can, let me know and I will change my setup. But for me, I couldn't, so I needed to come up with a way around it. And so what I have here is the grinder is just always running, and then I fill up with gravel faster than I can use it. And then the gravel that comes up from this pulverizer over here. And so what it does is it gets sent through into here through this diamond gate, and pipes are a little smarter now than they used to be back in the day, where they used to, if they were going to go into black but there wasn't space there, they'd just spit on the floor. But now if they go into black and there isn't space, then they'll continue on. I have a crescent hammer here to keep them going back through red, and then I just void them. So this keeps the flint from piling up all over the floor. Although one issue I do have with this system that is unresolved at this moment is when you pulverize flint, you have a chance of getting a tiny pile of flint dust. Now if I had enough gunpowder production that the system was running constantly, that's not a big deal. But since it isn't, and it'll sit here and it'll buffer itself back up again, it'll put items back in all of its buffers, I will get little piles of flint, and I pull them out and put them into the fabricator, where they are used just like the regular piles of flint that are produced. But if this guy gets full and these guys, their buffers are still empty, then it can spit some little piles of flint on the ground. But there are so few that actually happens during that I don't really care right now, and it's not a big deal to me. So those are my additional system setups. I hope you found that useful, and I hope you like it. Feel free to use it. And I will be going over some of my other systems in my later videos. So thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.